Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a message for you. Hope you're doing well on this Monday or whenever you're watching. Cards have been shuffled profusely. I cut the deck several times. I do not know what's on the bottom, but I'm going to go ahead and get started with the shuffling to see what is our message for today. Hope you're doing well. Awesome. Strength at the top. Hope you're doing well this Monday. If I didn't say that already, that's always my prayer, my hope, my desire for anyone that I connect to be doing well. Strength is most certainly a wonderful place to start. Overcoming your carnal nature, overcoming the walls of pride and ego, creating a balance in your energetic expression of pride in a sense. And the Queen of Cups is an awesome complement here by way of your emotional stability and intelligence. So those intels that are coming in, intuitions, oh, I heard it, what's being strengthened right now is your psychic intuition, your psychic prowess with the, wow, thank you, Spirit, with the lion here on the card. You are being strengthened by way of your psychic power and psychic prowess, primitively so, your intuitive intelligence. And that is also being strengthened from an ethereal state. So as you are continuing to find this balance of pride and ego, this almost, she looks angelic in a sense, and almost very, in a sense, very similar to even this queen herself. They have similar characteristics aesthetically, and white and lightly colored. I'm sorry, I'm itching. I hope you can't see me scratching my arm on the camera, but I'm like itching right now. But yeah, so your intuition's being sharpened and you're being strengthened by way of continuing to submit to it, to surrender to those cues of intel that sometimes don't necessarily have the most synergy in the physical sense. But you know what I'm actually hearing is that that's what's also being turned around, is because the strength card with the lion is a very, as I said, it's the difference between your higher and lower nature. So it's saying to me that because of your continued investment and focus in your intuitive intelligence, you're starting to actually see the material evidence or receipts, as we say, for that investment. You're actually starting to see, experience the physical material essence of your intuitive nature. That's amazing. That's awesome. All right, let's see what else we got here. Strength. So no matter what, at a time like this, I feel compelled to say this. One of my favorite readers says this, where there's strength, the devil is lurking. So as you're getting stronger, there are more and more opportunities that, the adverse spirit, even from within you, would like to project to cause you to distrust yourself, to distrust what you know to be true, what you can feel in your bones, what you can sense from your psychic intuition, with that still small voice that's speaking to you, telling you, giving you very distinct direction and directives. Sometimes that other voice can come in, that ego, as a matter of fact, which is ultimately in the highest vibration of an ego, just an aspect of you that's looking to protect you from hurt and harm, embarrassment, exclusion, reclusion. It's that nature of you that doesn't want you to be devoured by the lion of life, by the ferocities of life, in a sense. That's ultimately triggered when there are moments when you're more or less stepping outside of your comfort zone, doing something outside of the sanctity of societal norms and constructs and conventions. That energy within you is the voice that really roars more than this. It's much louder than the still small voice. I think that's a distinctive aspect of it, is that it speaks loudly to you, like, you can't do that. You're going to get laughed at. You don't have enough money. You don't have enough experience. You don't have enough time. You know, that person doesn't really love you. And, you know, it's a loud voice. The still small voice is the one that you actually gotta sit with. You gotta get quiet to hear that sound, you know. So maybe that's another thing that's happening, that there's becoming a balance in the resounding of those two voices as you continue, I guess, as we continue to lean into that intelligence. It's starting to quiet the roar just a little bit more. Each and every time we trust ourselves, step out in faith on something, or just allow ourselves to be content with what we feel and hear in an intuitive sense. We kind of shut the mouth, like as she's doing here, we kind of shut the mouth of that lion just a little bit more, like, nope, not this time. You're not gonna finesse me out of my destiny, not this time. And here we have the World card under here, and wow, look, we got the Sun and the Page of Swords, and this is exactly that representation that I was just speaking of. It could be an external interference, most certainly, but a lot of times that external interference is looking to attach to the interferences that we already harbor, you know, those insecurities and resistances within ourselves, that the ego ultimately is what it attaches to. And if there is still some remnant of unhealing, insecurity, uncertainty, fear, you know, these are the things that external influences that are looking to impose, to be an objective opposition ultimately to what? The Sun, the happiest expression of life, the most vital expression of life force in the deck. So those that are looking to be an obstinate force against that, to block it, to stop it, to cut it short, to resist it in one way, shape, or another, can only attach to the ego of you that is unchecked, ultimately. So it's not to say, as I said before, that the ego doesn't serve some constructive purpose, because it does. You know, we can't completely rid ourselves of ego, or we ultimately, you know, I don't know what would happen. I hear that you would be, you could potentially fall into more narcissistic pitfalls. I'm not sure, maybe so, but I would actually imagine it would be the opposite, that too much ego is what leads you to there. But maybe that's the thing, it's the imbalance and that lack of middle ground that could, you know, make you vulnerable in either direction. The difference between being vital and vile, in a sense, or being being a productive force in creativity, and being a host for some other source to ultimately manifest from. I don't know where that came from, but I heard that. So, but honestly, I do understand where it comes from in a sense, but it just kind of spewed out that the Page of Swords, and whatever energetic force it presents itself, whether it be internally or externally, is always looking to cut, you know, to dim the light of the sun in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's internally and trying to keep you from basically playing yourself or putting yourself in a position that would cause the opposite of the sun vibration, or it's the external force that's looking to manipulate or monopolize on that vibration for some ulterior motive or self-gratification. Either way, the way you continue to combat that is in the purest of pride, being continuing to cultivate creativity that you can be proud of, that you can feel good and secure submitting yourself unto, connections that you feel prosperous in, alignments that you feel divine in connection to, the vibration of the sun in its totality. You know, that's the objective here. the world is turning, that means that I would say, when the world comes up, usually it's the indication that there's been some cycle, some major cycle that's actually been completed, and I would say in this form, it's the imbalance of the pride and the ego in a way that is detrimental to the soul and spirit. Finding an acceptance, finding a place for your pride is what I hear. Because there's nothing wrong with having having a certain reverence for yourself and for what you have to offer and what you've been ultimately divined to do in this life, to literally allow the sun to not just shine on you, but to shine through you. If you're going to reject that vibrance, that exuberance, then it really doesn't serve the purpose in the earth that I believe Source is most intended upon, which is for us to be a reflective source, a reflective force unto one another, from this light of vitality, to see that vibrance in one another and be impressed and inspired to shine our own in our own regard. The adverse power that be, inside and outside, is afraid of that shining, so to speak, that brilliance in a sense, because it's very hard to be controlled when you have this is about self-control, the strength card. When you have self-control over yourself, over your thoughts, your emotions, back to that Queen of Cups card, you're not allowing yourself to be swayed left and right by external projections. You don't just fly off the handle at the first sign of misfortune or the first projection of something that should be feared, that propaganda that we get bombarded with day in and day out, with an obsession over material gain or material wealth, with possession of our material acquisitions, whether that be in money or actual measurable matter, or even in position, prestige, our gifts, our talents, the things that have ultimately allowed us to establish or give us the right to express a position of pride and reverence for ourselves, that we don't allow ourselves to be overpowered or overtaken by the energy, that there's a balance in all things so that we can continue to produce in that vitality of the sun, lest we veer into, in a diabolical sense, that moon energy where our spiritual nature is distorted in the light of the moon. Our projections are distorted. Our intentions are darkened. There's a great disparity there. One would want to keep us in that vibration because, again, if you can be controlled by your obsessions and ultimately be possessed by a lower nature, a lower intention, then that's one for the other team. Whatever the other team may be, however it may parade itself, whatever masks it wears, again, internally or externally, it's the opposite. It's an opposing force to the most supreme life source, ultimately. And again, the World card is here because whatever this battle of strength, battle of feats it was within yourself, again, recognizing that the first point of battle is internally before it's externally. Because if you're still dealing with some unresolved issues, some desire to be, or even, I wouldn't even say just desire, but an obsession more so than anything, but I guess in the most primitive sense, a desire to be affirmed by society, even affirmed in a more intimate sense by family, by friends, by coworkers, by neighbors, by strangers on the street. If you care so much even about your appearances, what you project as prominence or prosperity unto others, most of the time when you're stuck in that vibration, it's a presentation for people that don't even matter, or perhaps don't even know you. When you've kind of won the battle, or I would say won the war in that regard, may have lost a few battles along the way, perhaps because we all, again, are susceptible to being overtaken by the ego, and even with the ego's most purest intentions of protection. We all have we all have a tendency to be susceptible to that impact. But when you've ultimately found a balance with yourself, you found what it is that you can be proud of, you've positioned yourself to be in pure presentation of the best of you, and not really on account of what anybody has to say or understand or receive or reject or react to in that regard. That's ultimately winning the war. You know, when you've grounded yourself in that way, that it comes back to the first two. You know, with that queen of if your emotion, that Queen of Cups, if your emotions, if you can be controlled by your emotions or impacted, influenced by your emotions, it can completely throw everything else off kilter, your creativity overall, because then everything you do will be on account of how it's going to be perceived or received. The adverse energy can work very well with that vibration, as opposed to now, where the tables are turning. This is not only the end of a long night's journey, I would like to say, but this is a dawning of a new day, literally, with the sun here. Okay, so congratulations. You must have done some great work on yourself. As I mentioned, the moon, maybe some worked on some shadow aspects of yourself, and it's been hard. It hasn't been pretty. It hasn't always been favorable. You know, when you are working on the dark aspects of yourself, you can often look at, you know, you can often get in pride and ego and want to resist what you, you can be resistant. You can often get into your pride and ego and start to resist what you find, you know. Yeah, and instead of seeing the value of it all, you know, seeing the highest value of yourself, it can put you even in competition with yourself or with others, because the first thing that we do as humans is start to compare outwardly. You know, well, I'm not doing as bad as them, or worse. Well, actually, I don't know what's worse, to say I'm not doing as bad as someone else, or I am doing worse than someone else. It's all basically, you know, two ends of the spectrum that once again leads you into that pitfall of self, you know, of pride ultimately. And this is the competition. I'm gonna put it up here actually to give me a little bit more room. This is the competitive force, again, that happens internally, but I'm also sensing, you know, as it's connected to this Page of Swords, this external vibration of sorts, is that there's competition over the essence of you as you've been proven to be strong in nature, that people are observing your vitality. People are seeing what you have to offer. They've already known what you had to offer in some way, shape, or form. And maybe the interferences that were incurred were on account of you not connecting to that. See how she's looking down at that pentacle? That pentacle is about, you know, in the energetic sense, value, you know, your gifts, your creativity, your energy, as well as material measurement, you know, actually being a secure, being a sound creator, one that is stable in her own right, that is grounded and committed to whatever that she creates and whatever she's nurturing. That's the Queen of Pentacle energy. And there are those that are competing over that vitality to either connect with it or again to obstruct it, maybe just to keep tabs on it, to observe how it works, how it does what it does, how she does what she does, and you know what she's going to do next in that regard. You know, there are energies that are on post to observe your expression of prosperity as it is, and more or less to track where it's en route to. But again, keep on, as the first queen came out, stay in tune to your emotional intelligence, your psychic capabilities, that still small voice, those signs and signals in your everyday waking life that are pointing you in directions to ultimately keep you off the path of this energy here, to keep it disconnected from you and you disconnected from it as much as possible, or to at least keep your vibration raised in such a way that you don't fall into the pitfalls of pride and feeling like you got something to prove, or you even have to be in attack mode. As a matter of fact, like, you don't have to join this frenzy of competition and chaos in order to overcome it. You actually do so by staying on the throne, staying in position, being mindful of your vibration, what you're creating. That's the best defense, to literally mind your business and drink your water. Ultimately, that is the best defense against any opposing force, because when you are literally in tune to your own vibration and the energetic vibration, i.e. the spirit, which is the expression of the water, there, in the most primitive sense and in the most supreme sense. When you're staying in tune to the universal flow and vibration, it's hard for you to allow yourself to allow any imposition otherwise. And all those that are looking to be so will end up ultimately fighting their own selves, or exhausting themselves in this competition for your spirit and soul that is already captured in a supreme source, already captivated by a supreme source. There's nothing an earthly bound entity ultimately can do to obstruct that, when you are most connected to that truth and that reality, and knowing that that's where your true vitality and value lies. When you start to feel like you got to step outside of that, well, let me tell you something, let me prove something to you, or you want to start putting on airs and putting on a show, unjustifiably, taunting the enemy in a sense where it's not necessary to do so, it's not necessarily pure for you to be that way, then that's when you start to fall, and you start to kind of put yourself in the way of the lion, for that lion to attack in a sense. But when you stay pure, you stay focused, you stay grounded, as the Queen of Pentacles does, as the Queen of Cups does, in the strength of your vitality and pure pride, there's no force that would project itself to be adversity that could actually be successful in their attempts or their pursuits. It's just not universally possible at this time, especially with that World card coming out. And as it just peeked out again, the world is turning. Did your grandmama used to watch that show? As the World Turns? My grandmom did. That and The Young and the Restless. Yeah, the seven and the here we go. The seven of swords, which is exactly that. So it's an aggressive attempt to be adverse, to be obstructive, to be destructive in some direct way. And as I've said, it's more bark than bite. Now, there absolutely is the possibility that certain things have definitely gotten over on you, certain spirits, because when we're talking about adversity, even in the humanistic form, it's not really the person in the face and body that you know it to be that's offending. It's really the spirit that they've allowed to inhabit their force field, or that they've connected to, at least in some way, shape, or form, that is running the show. And when you're, look at this, in adversity to the sun, what's beating the sun? The sun is still shining. It's cloudy right now where I'm at, but the sun is still shining somewhere above those clouds, even when you can't see it. So even when there's a thought that something has been, an energy has gotten over or escaped, it's the cause and effect of its actions. Ultimately, this energy will always find its way to its own karma. It's just the universal law of things. So we got the Seven of Pentacles, the Seven of Cups here, which is illusion and confusion. Yeah, this is all what this is about. Still with this intention for causing endings and destruction and death in the most intentional sense, but certainly in the spiritual essence of so, to really just kill the spirit of strength that you have obtained through your hard work and dedication and focus, to deter you from this path of confidence, with the Strength card. That's definitely a key there. And courage, to feel like you can trust your own intuition, that you can feel secure in what you've established for yourself and what's being established for you, even from an ethereal source of energy. Is the Death card here, again, it's a determination from outside forces, or even internally. It's still the same, where there's these illusions that are being projected that if you find agreement with, you might actually end up collaborating with for your own demise in the Three of Pentacles, as opposed to answering to the highest vibration of you, which is Three of Pentacles working with you and for you, even more so, where you find the tribe that is most in alignment with your ideals, that's most focused and fortified in the ways that are productive and prosperous, that match your vibe ultimately. You align with those energies, not competing for any particular acceptance from forces that you already have identified with as not having your best interest at heart, or just not being an energetic match. Because although in the simplest vibration, this could be just what do we call it? Like a competition. I can't think of the word, the adjective, but it's like competition that's not necessarily harmful. It's just harmless. Harmless competition, like in sports, or I don't know much more. Maybe corporately, maybe in business, where there's just competition could be good for business in a sense, because it offers variety for all. What you do maybe might be different, even if it appears to be the same than what someone else does, and so you get to serve more people, even though the nature of it is competitive, one business to another. But the territory you can cover is greater, and also I don't know why I'm saying all this, but in a small business forum, you may be overwhelmed by taking on too many clients and then spin yourself out of control. So whereas it might be good, imagine if, this is a very whack example, but I'm just gonna say it. Imagine if everybody only went to McDonald's every single day for lunch. They would lose their minds. But no, you have other fast food restaurants that are definitely, especially in the same neighborhood, a competition. You got Taco Bell, you got Chick-fil-A, you got Burger King. But if all the business only came to McDonald's, my God, the business would never be able to keep up. So there is, I guess, in that regard, some need or place for competition in this regard. But in the way that it's showing up here, it's unnecessary competition. It's people that are trying to dominate one another, using their force and their creativity to one up one another, or to get the greater end of a situation unjustifiably. And with the Death card following that, it's just not, it's to cause endings, if not to one another, as a collective force, again, unto that source of vitality that you are just, just exuberant with at this time, to be obstructive to that energy. Now, obviously, when it comes to death, there's no one that can have the final say in your expiration of life, unless it be the sole source of all, and that death itself is not even a thing to be afraid of, in the way it's been sensationalized. Of course, that's easier said than believed when it comes down to facing your mortality, but that's what we're being called to overcome the fear of, in a sense, of an ending or demise in any way, shape, or form, practically so or actually so, because we give the keys to that influence over to a source that doesn't deserve to have it. Anything outside of the sole source of all, God's self, is not worthy to hold those types of lord over that possibility in your life. And any energy or entity or collaborative force, coven of sorts that would look to project such, ultimately is, like I said, coming to their own demise in the Seven of Swords. The very energy that they could ever project in terms of endings, naturally, materially, psychologically, mentally, physically, intimately, progressively so, will ultimately lead right back to the sender, right back to the source from whence it came, So don't be finessed in the Seven of Cups, don't be illusioned or delusioned about your own mortality and vitality, and continue to stay focused, working with others that are productive in nature and that support and secure your vitality in the most supreme ways possible. And even as it comes to endings, I would say, in your sense, welcome, endings that come to play at this time, because certainly anything that's coming to a culmination, we got a full moon in Pisces coming up. So that's a lot of this energy here. And I did mention the moon. Full moon in Pisces on the 30th coming up, which is bringing a lot of revelations to a culmination, and also bringing a lot of open-ended, and the World card, open-ended circumstances to a close, to bringing it to closure. A lot of the things that have been going on behind the scenes in the dark are being illuminated and ultimately being brought to an end. And with that are going to be certain relationships, certain ideals, certain even securities or investments that were once made in people, places, and things, unbeknownst to you, that haven't deserved to be in accordance with your energy and your vibration, or in connection with it. There were a lot of things that we didn't see, that we were in illusion about who was really for us and who was really against us. Many things have been coming to surface in the light of the Leo season. Virgo is just intensifying that. We got hella planets in retrograde, and Venus itself is actually about to go forward again soon. And Mercury being in the position that it's in, it's all fair game as to how endings are coming into play. And then the full moon, which is, mind you, a super moon, it's not just a regular ass moon. This is now the second full moon. So we started this culmination process at the top of the month. I think it was on the 3rd or something like that, which was the first full moon. Then we had the new moon smack in the middle in Leo doing what it does, which was very high vibrational in my experience. And now we have a second full moon, both of the beginning and end being super moons. So it's an intensified energy. It's like when the moon it appears to be, or perhaps is, but I know it's definitely the appearance of it being close to Earth, but I think it actually is. So imagine that in the most practical sense, the illumination of the moon bringing things closer into your observation, into your focal point, to actually see the nature of the distortions that were missed, and that weren't able to be seen otherwise, because they were being hidden. They were literally in dark spaces and dark places, underground objectives that you didn't even know existed. Now it's all coming to light. The clouds are being lifted. That's also Neptune energy. The new moon is in Pisces. I think I said that already. So we know that that's the last sign in the zodiac. That's the last house. It's bringing all things to an end, to a close, to a culmination, to a clearing. Neptune can be a little bit dreamy and things of that nature, but with the aspect as it is now, it's going to clear away a lot of those clouds, a lot of that smoke. And I believe that it's most certainly doing it more spiritually and energetically. So I did say for sure that it's bringing it into a physical realm as well, which I still do stand firm on. But when we consider the vibration of Neptune is dreamy, and I said in the beginning, it's you having invested trust within yourself, your psychic intuition, your intel, your emotional intuitive, your psychic intuition, your emotional intelligence that has often ultimately strengthened your vitality even against the things that you couldn't see. So that's the vibe that's the vein to keep going in. Even if it doesn't become blatantly obvious to you that it's this one, that one, that one, and that one, and this is where, this is where I don't need to go, like the hardcore evidence and receipts is for you to continue to stay in that vein that led you to your safety and security in the first place, that kept you safe and sound when obviously there was a lot going on under the surface to ultimately obstruct your happiness, to block your progression, to block your prosperity, to block your productivity. Things that you couldn't even see were happening. And the ways that you were allowing the spirit to lead you, the supreme source that you submit to most highly, you were allowing it to lead you by way of that internal intel, those signs and signals in your waking life, and also, again, how it was speaking to you from the inside as to what directives to take, what moves to make. Stay in that vein. That's what's going to continue to keep you safe and secure, to keep you focused on a clear path, on a safe path forward, and on a fast track. Ultimately, as these people are going to be continuing to fight amongst themselves, you'll be able to take that road right on around them to keep on going, and the fog will be cleared. And I do, as I said, believe that it's still now coming into us not just having to lean unto the faith of things that we can't see. That's been the investment, that we've done a lot of that. Now we're going to actually get the evidence for the faith of things that we invested in that we couldn't see, as to why we did that in the first place, why we should keep doing it, and if we continue to do it, what it'll afford us and where it'll lead us ultimately to this light and into this light of the sun, and for the sun to be inhabited by us ultimately, So yeah, don't get finessed, because these last moments of breaking through, of crossing over, are, like I said, where there's strength, the devil is lurking. It's like the last ditch effort to try to finesse you out of your reality of who you've become, who you are, who you've grown to be, how you've evolved over this time. Yeah, to project to you that you're poor in spirit, when ultimately you know that you're more than just material wealth. So to project some lack or scarcity in your waking lives in some way, shape, or form to ultimately send you into this frenzy of lust, in fear of something or another, in fear of either the objection or obstruction against you, which is illusionary, just as the Seven of Cups is. It'll send you into this frenzy to go and do more, something more aggressively and impulsively than you actually are called to do, on account of not wanting to recreate this projection of fear and heartbreak and lack and lowness. With the Three of Swords, that these are these are energies that you've ultimately already healed from. So the illusionary projection is to try to reinfuse these woundings, or even throw salt in old woundings internally, so to make you feel like you haven't in fact grown much, or you haven't progressed at all. It'll try to send you backwards, like, see, look, you still that same old girl. You still poor. You still, for all that you still ain't got, your business is still subpar. You hardly have any followers. You don't hardly have no subscribers. Ain't nobody trying to hear what you gotta say. Ain't nobody watching what you do. These are the energies, or even in a more practical sense, or from your job, from, diminishing your work and your value, your contributions, making you feel like outright, that you're not valued in what you have to offer. It's all projective, ultimately, to send you back into old cycles of fear and old cycles of insecurity, worthlessness, all the lowest natural spiritual projections that lead to nowhere, that lead to more poverty and more lack, that diminish your creative spirit from producing beyond this present moment. Because if you allow yourself to fall short, as I said, to get finessed in those illusions, it'll ultimately throw your creativity off balance, and you'll start to recreate that cycle over and over again, which is the objective ultimately. Because if you're creating those cycles of fear and insecurity and instability, perhaps still reaching for relationships that don't project your best, still trying to squeeze into places that already have showed you are not high vibrational, trying to connect with people that are not forwarding your movement as you identify with it, that are not adding value to your creativity, trying to hold on to habits and ideals that ultimately depress you or leave you feeling depleted or low energy, low vibing. That's the force that keeps on continuing the toxic cycle that does not produce prosperity. It can only produce more lack and more of what is ultimately keeping you outside of the sanctity of your own spirit, of that own soul source of you that's just dying to push through. It's the complete adverse energetic force of it all. So let me get one more. Yeah, old heartbreaks. And Mercury retrograde is here. We're definitely in the thick of it. So that's prime season for old ideals to come to the surface. You start to get into some type of, what did I just hear? Not self-sacrifice, like, what's the word? I can't think of it. I heard it though. Dang, what was that? When you start to feel sorry for yourself, ultimately, that's a spirit, that's a projective spirit as well. If it first starts in projecting to you all the external ideals about you, and then you start to feel, yeah, here it is again, trying to impede on what? Your stability and security, and your gosh darn it, your celebration of yourself. You being a celebration with yourself, your angels continuing the celebration in your honor for the progress that you've made, for how you have evolved, according to the universal order of things. I feel led to say that many of us have evolved beyond what was even projected to be done so. That many of us that have incurred great heartbreak, great disappointment, have overcome some demonstrative demise, that have not demonstrative. Is that the word I'm looking for? Definitely diabolical, not demonstrative. But you know what I'm trying to say, like demonic in essence determinations on our lives, on our livelihoods, on our creativity, on our life force in general. Many of us have overcome in great strength, literally surmounted great feats to just exist at this time. The universe, angelic realms, and so on, angels, ancestors, way showers, guides, those around you that may even be rooting for you and inspired by what you do, whether you see them or not, or know them or not. You know, God, source of all, being thankful that there's still some reason to spare this realm, you know, because there's some acceptance and surrender to the evolution that is occurring naturally. If we were all resisting it, there would be no justification for our existence. You know, if all of us are pushing back on this evolution, that world card, that evolving of spirit, of soul, of physicality, you know, if we weren't allowing ourselves, even in the physical sense, to ascend in a way that we can inhabit this great vitality of force, it would be lost energy, you know, it would be wasted. It would go nowhere but maybe to the rocks. You know, I guess the scripture does say the rocks would cry out if no human would. But I believe the intention of Source is for us to all be elevated in our highest force, you know, for us to all ascend ultimately to that direct reflection of vitality that's been projected to us all along, so that just like the moon comes in closer to the earth and it's a reflective force in a sense, in essence, so that we don't observe ourselves to be so distant from this vitality of the sun. You know, we see such a great distance in ourselves from source. You know, there's so much middle management between us and the source of all, that we have a hard time finding, you know, our reverence in that, our importance, you know, our value, back to that Queen of Pentacles, like the value in our essence, that Source is just as desirous of us as we should be or could be of it, you know, that it's a collaborative effort here. Any adverse energy wouldn't want you to celebrate yourself in that high fashion, wouldn't want you to observe yourself as so. They'd rather you see yourself as meek and lowly and meager, and, you know, back to that Five of Pentacles, that you're a wretch undone and you're living in the world of sin and you have no hope, no peace within. That's the projection of the adverse energy, for you to always see yourself as less than, never enough, certainly never enough, but that you would always feel subservient to Source in the sense that you don't even deserve the vitality that ultimately is your inheritance to receive. The angels, the ancestors, the wayshowers, the guides, they're happy that the world is turning and we're starting to see ourselves as highly valuable. It doesn't mean that it's in a narcissistic way where we see ourselves as only valuable in our own essence. No, it's quite the opposite. We see the collaborative importance here, that we are co-creators with the universe, that we are the active agents, that we are important even one to another, that we impact one another, we impress upon one another that same spirit of vitality, so that nobody is not important. Even the worst of us makes an impact, which is the whole point, for us to raise the creative consciousness to hopefully inspire all to be uplifted and ascended, so that we're only answering to the highest frequency, that we don't have to be dragged down or contend with or constantly fighting with those lower frequencies within even our own beings, that hopefully it'll be eradicated altogether because it will have no place to survive. You know, I believe that's the ideal ultimately. So this is this guy here, and as I said, what is he walking into but heartbreak in his own right? You know, it's like need I even say more? The hearts that he has broken, and this is he, she, they. I'm just saying he because it's a male card, but these are those forces, like I said, spiritually, energetically, that are looking to impede upon your evolution, your expression of truth, to make you see something differently, to bring endings to your progression, to evoke these memories, like to bring back the muscle memory of sorrow is what I hear, so that you'll have that to contend with instead of aspiring to higher and to more and to be expansive and evolved and ascended and transcended beyond these earthly experiences, which were ultimately only here to serve as a guide to our highest selves, to serve as a signpost to our spiritual satisfaction. So we know what we don't want to create. We know what doesn't feel good. We know what doesn't yield great results. And we can ultimately learn from that intel and do something different, create in a different way. That's the expression of celebration that's here in the heavens and in the earth for your vitality. And let's just see, yep. And, when I just say, like that, I heard Dolo the Pilot Man, aka Archangel Uriel on YouTube. I don't know if he's on Instagram too, I think. But if you don't know him, you would definitely, I can't even say. You'd have to tap into him and see if it matters to you. But I was just I was just guided to a song yesterday of his called Externalize. And it's like basically saying that everything that we experience in our day-to-day lives is coming from an internal source. So everything that's being created, even those that you feel are up against you, people, places, and things, adversity as it presents itself, certainly prosperity as it presents itself here in the Ten of Pentacles, is all from an external source. So we can externalize this spirit of strength, this spirit of vitality, of prosperity, of dynasty and a legacy of love, of stability here with the Four of Wands, where we're only looking to be in commitments and connections that are stable and that present themselves to be, that establish us as secure beings and support that force accordingly, not work against it, not us working in competition against each other's projects because we want to be deemed the best or the most notariable or have the most customers or the most followers or the most friends or whatever, in any practical or fantastical sense. If it's not competition for sportsman's sake, it's almost not necessary. And as I said, even the competition in business, you could end up, promoting a business that has a synergy with you, and it ultimately bring dividends to your bottom line just on the spirit of such, just not having the spirit of adversity against your neighbor. The idea ultimately with that world card is that the new world order is that there is enough for all. There's enough. There's more than enough. There's enough space. There's enough opportunity. There's enough money. There's enough power. There's enough respect. There's enough vitality. There's enough time. There's enough energy. There's enough resources. There is more than enough. Even with the way that things are being projected in our nation right now, in our world, quite honestly, we feel like the space itself is closing in on us as people are having to leave different areas and natural disasters are happening and places are being diminished. Even as things are being cleared, there's still the presence of life that remains. There's still the possibility of life that remains, that as devastated as even Maui is at this time, the island still stands and it ain't going nowhere. and you can clear that brush away and build again, hopefully, and it'll be something even more vital and fortifying than it was before, even more progressive than it was before, hopefully, if the right people, spirits, get their hands on it, because I feel like that was spirit pushing some energies out in a sense, because that's the energy that we're in, as I was saying. And no disrespect to the citizens of Maui whatsoever, or anybody affected by it, but a lot of the disasters that are happening around the globe are a purification process of Gaia herself, that there needs to be a sweeping of impurities, so that there can be an evolution of prosperity without any apprehension or any restriction or any without it being tainted, and sometimes the way fire is, and even water, it does saturate the land in a sense that is devastating, especially to the inhabitants thereof. But it, as I said, clears the way for new life, for new opportunity. And this is that new life here, new dynasties that are being cleared away by this old world mentality of, one me against you and you against me, where people are bringing their ideas together. They're not just in the intimate sense, but very much so in a creative sense and in a professional sense, where there is no fear of us working together, even if you do what I do and they do what we do. And how can we all work together? How can we forward one another? How can we learn from each other? How can we encourage each other to ultimately all be the best that we can possibly be? That's what creates this explosion of prosperity in this sense, where there's so much here in the Ten of Pentacles that you can't even spin that in a lifetime. This is a dynasty, a legacy, a lifelong legacy, lifetimes of legacy, something to pass down to your children and their children's children and their children's children. You don't get to that in a competitive state where you're always trying to maintain this position of notoriety at all costs, ultimately. And you don't care who you hurt to get there, but you got to be the best. That might have worked before, that ferocious spirit of pride may have gotten a lot of people advanced in some way. But I'm telling you, there's an overturning of that spirit now, where those that have operated in that force are finding themselves on, odd men out, ultimately, literally looking from the outside in at true vitality and source, like the highest vibration and frequency of life force. They're feeling disconnected from that and still competing against themselves and others, perhaps having to meet others that they dusted along their path in order to just survive at this point, literally to survive, to overcome death in the most practical and actual sense. That's the collaboration here, is for us to stay above the fray, above the heartbreak, to see that as the segue ultimately to the stability of sound mind and able body and prosperous relationships. No matter how many times you had your heart broken, if you've found yourself to the wisdom of what it is that you truly desire to have, then that's the intel worth suffering for, because now you will never recreate toxic experiences, relationships that are leading nowhere, that diminish your divine quality and value. You'll never recreate that again, because you've overcome the insecurities and instabilities from a spiritual nature that ultimately allowed you to create that vibration in the first place. Once you've overcome it, that ego, that pride, that need for connection, that need to be seen, that need to be heard, that need to be number one, validated, affirmed from anything outside of the soul source that you submit to, you don't ever return there again, because the path that you're now on is eternal vitality, eternal security, eternal dynasty, legacy, something that is beyond your wildest dreams at this point, beyond what you could even imagine to be possible. And some of us have some really grand visions, but I assure you that anything magnified by the sun in this time, in this era, on this timeline, in this dimension, is going to supersede anything that you could have fantasized for yourself. So just stay focused. Don't get finessed by external projections on the macro scale and on the micro scale from the society that we inhabit or from your intimate circles and surroundings. So stay focused on the strength that you've cultivated for yourself, even in the worst of times, that you've surmounted the worst of things, heartbreak in essence. You've surmounted that, you've survived, and now you're thriving to tell the story and to offer your testimony to the world of the vitality that's possible to inhabit and to admit when you will be and surrender fully to the spiritual essence of you. All right? In spirit and in truth, it is so. Until next time, peace.